et laisser l'Afrique à l'état naturel. On est monté du Malongé, Afrique est taillée dans l'homme. On est monté Malongé, Afrique est taillée dans l'homme. Matibino, comme on a mon bagnam, c'est bon. Matibino, comme on a mon bagnam, c'est bon. L'Afrique aux Africains.
Good morning all, good morning. I hope you're all well. Hope this message finds you all in the best of health as it has left from me. These are some of the greetings we used to send out to Jamaica in the 1980s to family from England, from my parents. We sent letters. I used to write letters all the time to Jamaica, something that I found great as well. I found that it helped me to establish a relationship with my family in Jamaica, get to know about them. Also, I was privy to my parents' most deepest inspirations and aspirations. They would write home to their family and tell them how things were going in England, often relaying messages of the difficulties of living in England, the bills, the pressure, that's what we call it, pressure that is unseen but it's felt. Everybody goes through things called pressure and inflation, debt, bills, things that come up. Having children alone will have been a massive strain on their relationship and on their own personal self-development, but yet they stuck to it. This is what Jamaican parents are well known for, sticking by their children. Maybe some marriages don't last as long as the relationship does with the children. That's why we have the saying baby mother, baby father now. Before it was just husband, wife, partner, lover. Now we call each other baby mothers, baby fathers. That man there over there, so that girl there, my ex. These are some of the terms. But you know, this is modern society we live in. So I want to talk about some of the other things that are happening, not just the 80s. I want to talk about lifestyle as well. And in my lifestyle, a lot of it evolves around music, science as well. And as well as that, I do other things. But I like to concentrate on the musical aspect of life. And I'm going to go and delve deeper. That's so deep that you won't lose yourself, but you may well find that it's above your understanding of what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about some of the engineering techniques I've learned, some of the mixing techniques, some of the writing techniques, even how I write lyrics. I'm not going to help you to write songs. I will show you the process. This is what this whole thing is about, watching the process, seeing how the process goes on. In the music industry, we have many processes. Like when you have to learn anything in any industry, you have to learn from the bottom. You can't just go in at the beginner's level and become an expert. That's really very difficult because there's a lot of pitfalls. Even if you are able to make that meteoric rise, it's still a difficult ascension, or it's difficult to stay on top if you are in the music industry. So we have some new artists nowadays that I've been listening to, that I've plugged into, I'm tapped into. We're connecting. These are terms that we use. If you link with somebody, you link with an artist, we build up a relationship, or we just stay on the outsides of each other's own particular personal lives. We don't actually meet, we just become fans of each other. You can become a fan of somebody. It doesn't mean that you are fanatical, it just means that you kind of admire their personality. You might admire some of the music So that is what I'm about. I will admire other people's music. I will listen to their music without really judging it, whether it's to my tastes. Even if I don't like a track, I can easily play that track on my show, because if it's popular, then why not play it? If it's good, then why not play it? If it's interesting, then why not listen to it? If somebody sent it to me, I will listen to it at least. The very least I'm going to do is listen to it. I have songs sent to me all the time from different artists and from different labels. These labels are basically trying to get their songs pushed. This is how the industry does things. We will promote our songs freely at first, but there is still a downside to free promotions. So some of the artists that I introduce you to, they've given me the stuff free. Listen to it if you want to. If you don't, there's no obligation to neither you or to me for anything other than this is my platform. So you're gonna find on here it's me who's pushing these things. It's me and my team. My team, we're not here to hold people back. So this gives us a great sort of pedestal to sit on. I won't even use the word pedestal. This gives us a good stage to sit on, because if we're not being judgmental against the artist and we are artists, then there's no conflict of interest. This is something that happens in business or in events or companies. If you are somebody who's gone into that company and you have your own interests, this may become somewhat of a issue. Say if you are working for like a logistics company, but you have your own part-time logistics company, maybe you're in there to gain knowledge about the industry. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe you're in there to earn extra money. Also, there's nothing wrong with that. What may become a problem is if you go into that company with your own ideas of gaining leverage. This can be difficult for you to find out this information, so that becomes a stage where you then use other methods to find out information. You steal information, you acquire information. This is not illegal, but it's unethical. And then you walk into it's very easy for you then to become seen as a competitor. This then becomes illegal. If you're a competitor and you are using ideas from that company to basically make your own company better, then yeah, that's espionage. It's illegal. You shouldn't be just doing that. And this can happen even in the music industry. People will align with you. They will claim to want to work with you in order to gain some form of recognition. Once they've got that recognition, then usually they're off. This is why I talk about contracts, and this is something that we were going to delve into a lot more. We look at how contracts establishes artists and how artists are in a better position just by the very fact that they have got a written agreement, not just a verbal agreement, with any management company or a producer, or indeed as a songwriter or as a musician. Whichever position you take in that particular project, you have your own rights. It's still employment you're doing. And if the end project is a commercial project, that means that it's going to be used to be sold out there to create a buzz and maybe even make a profit, then you have your rights to be credited at the very least. And going beyond this, you should have some form of arrangement made with that company or with that particular establishment, or even if it's an individual, if you and somebody else, just make an agreement, get it written down, get it even done in emails, by your emails and what agreements you make. You can really send emails to confirm things, and as a courtesy call and as a way of establishing a business relationship. So emails is a legal binding contract when you agree to do something. So it's not being false when you're confirming with somebody that you've had a conversation on the phone, you may have spoken for a while, you've come to agreement, or in order to consolidate that whole contract, you need to get that in writing in some way, and emails is a way of doing that. So I would advise young artists to use emails, get an email address, get some form of established, recognized contact. Emails with organizations' names doesn't automatically mean that that's you, but it still links to you because it should be linked to your phone or to your computer, or to you have the password to it. Nobody else should have the password to that. So therefore it's not a shared postal address, just like it wouldn't be shared if you was living on your own and a letter was sent to you. This is also used, people use the postal service in order to send letters, to send confirmation letters to each other. This is also contractually arrangements. So if something then comes awry during later on, you can then recall the letters, you can recall emails. It's harder to recall conversations because people may not remember everything that they said, and this is not always about them lying. This is to do with how contracts are done. It's far more easier to prove by written statements than it is to prove by spoken, and that's just simple. So that also goes into how we find out about the truth. A lot of the truth has been written down, it's been passed down through generations, and we find out the truth just by evidence of that. So letters, writings are evidence, and this is how we ascertain to find the truth. The truth is there in plain sight. We see a lot of the industry now talking about the sexual allegations that's going against some producers at the moment, which is very serious. You know, if somebody is being accused of that, they're going to really look at their lives, because it's a very serious accusation. And when I spoke on the other episode about my own attitude to women, I did have to change my attitude within my own everyday, day-to-day runnings of my projects and of my business. I always wanted to become fair or be seen as fair, but it's not always possible to understand every other individual's personal needs. So when you're working with females, it's always good to be friendly, and it's always good to be honest and open, and it's always good to be fair. Not as best of your ability, it's good to be fair at all times, because that is what we expect of each other. This is something that you should be dealing with on a natural basis. There shouldn't be no conflict of interest of being fair to somebody. This should never happen. But the conflict of interest is something that we can discuss that, and we can look at what all the issues are, different things that cause this to be an issue. As I said, I've spoke about people who have their own interests, or competitors who then want to work with the major competitors in order to glean leverage. This is not ethical. That's a word that we use. So ethical business is part of being truthful and about being honest. So when we're ethical in our business, that means that we are completely transparent. Transparency is a word that over the last 20 years has become ever more needed, especially when we're talking about public services. So governmental departments use this word transparency as in to be able to relay what are their day-to-day policies, what are their day-to-day running of the business, what are the costs. And if there is no transparency, then they can make up all sorts of things. They can say this, they can make up excuses, they can even tell lies. This is not transparency. Lying is not transparency. So when we look at how we go to the truth and how we understand the truth, we can use the law, we can use mechanisms that's already put in front of us. Transparency is one of the mechanisms. If somebody's not being transparent, then there's a chance that they're not being honest, they're not being open. Being open means that you are willing and expect some form of criticism or some form of follow-up questions to what your statements are. You make a statement, people ask. That is transparency. You answer with honesty and to the best of your ability. This is honesty, because if you are part of the company but you only have certain amount of information, you are speaking openly and honestly about what you know. If you are then trying to cover up, this will come out also. This may become apparent when the people are asking you the questions, and you as a representative of the company or deliberately withholding information. This is not honesty. This is not transparency. So in order to find transparency, we can look at how government departments are grilled, and they have to be transparent. They also have commissions that go on during times of government operations. Sometimes things go wrong. This leads them to have some form of inquiry. This happened during the Stephen Lawrence situation. There was also a government paper that came out that was to do with the findings of the research and of the investigation. Read through the paper, you will then understand what the government findings are. I'm not going to tell you what the government findings are, but when it's come to do with race, I am interested in that, and I am interested in how the response is given. This is where you find transparency, and this is where you see honesty. But initially, when communities often look for justice, they are looking for the truth, they're looking for transparency, they're looking for honesty. They don't always get that in the beginning. It's not until pressure is put upon them. So pressure brings the truth, pressure brings honesty. Being open and forthright is not always easy to do, but it helps to find the truth. It helps to determine whether something is truthful, or the circle that you're in is truthful. If the people that you are moving with are not honest, then there's a chances are that you're not going to be honest yourself. That sometimes works that way, but sometimes you have to be the one person in that group who speaks the truth, who stands up no matter what, regardless of the cost, even if it means losing friends, losing face, being seen as a turncoat. These are some of the terms that are used. People do not like when you tell the truth, especially your friends. They may well go against it. This is going against the grain. It's not playing fair. It's not playing being sporty. And again, you can think about these things out yourself. I can have an opinion whether you want to be sporting or you want to be fair. I think it's good to be sporty and just be sporting, be a person who can take a loss. This is what you learn in sports. This is what we learn in as a boxer. Two fighters, and they start off mean mugging each other, been talking a lot of smack talk, a lot of grimy stuff is being talked about in the interview. And then when the bell rings, it's one-on-one. And sometimes this can come back to be a haunting thing that happens for boxers. We saw this with Anthony Joshua the other day. I thought he was being rather over the top with his assessment of how he was going to beat Dubois. So we know who we're talking about. We're talking about Joshua versus Dubois. And I saw the pre-match warm up, the talk, and I don't think Joshua really handled himself very well at all. That's just being honest. I'm from the streets. I hear a lot of people talk grimy, but if it's a man who's equal to me, there's no reason for me to get up and talk about licking the man over the head with a chair, and I'm a boxer. What was it? The man had, it was impervious to blows from a chair. Then you're gonna be in a very, very sticky spot there, mate. You know what I mean? I'm just being honest with you, Anthony. You know, you're a good bloke. You're a good man. You're a top sports representative. But there's sometimes I think where we always lapse up, we lose our composure, and that is one of the situations where we saw that, we heard that, we then witnessed the fight, we saw the post-match interview, which was a far different account than the first one. The first one, if you was a betting man, the favourite was Anthony Joshua. Based off of that interview, people had Anthony Joshua as the favourite. Unfortunately, it didn't live up to his expectations. The fight was a thrilling fight, and I'm not going to tell you the outcome, but I'm sure you can tell. I'm sure most of you already know what the outcome of that fight was. And as I said, the post-match interview was far different. It was more humbling, and I was surprised that Anthony Joshua came out so early and so quick. And it seemed at the time that he had been told by his team, tone it down, wind it in. I don't really care if anybody feels offended by what I'm saying. I'm just going off of what I saw. I saw a different frame. I saw a different frame from this guy. I saw a different personality come out at the post fight, and that's how it works. This is how it works when you have to take back your words, and that is truthful and being truthful. So the truthful statements that he made in the beginning, and then we saw the truth in the fight of the man on man, that is truthful. This is the truth. Whatever people will talk in the beginning of the fight to what happens in the fight, they then have to humble themselves when they are knocked down once, twice, 3, maybe 4 times, maybe completely knocked out. This can happen. And this is humbling. This is the truth. This is how a lot of men realize that they have to tell the truth, that they have to talk the truth. It doesn't matter what we talk behind people's backs. When it comes to that one-on-one, often the truth comes out. And I'm not going to say that this is a technique that's often used by bullies as well, but if you're able to get information out of people by whatever means, you're going to do that. That is just the way the world works. We live in a society that the biggest, the baddest often have the more say. They often are the ones who get the truth out of people. People won't lie to them. They're scared to tell the lie to them. America, on the stage of politics, is seen as a big, massive bully. Britain, it's got its history. It's gone round the world and often bullied countries, and then retold the history of this country as being a weak and uncivilized people. These are not truthful statements. A lot of history does not tell us the truth. Science even does not depict fully the truth. Scientists can be compromised. Politicians can be compromised, lawyers can be compromised, teachers can be compromised, police officers can be compromised, people in authority can all be compromised. This can be a problem, because if they're all saying the same thing, doesn't mean that they're all telling the truth. They're just all reading from the same songbook, from the same song sheet. So when we talk about not being on the same wavelength, this is similar to that. So musicians that I'm working with often speak the truth. Producers that I work with will work on this premise as well, and the audience will act accordingly. If they want to hear the truth, then more than likely then they will gravitate to that side. And I've always found that the audience always gravitate to the truth, even if propaganda is being used to steer them away. We hear the term conspiracy theories going on. This is a term that's been going on for a good hundreds of thousands of years. They've talked about conspiracy theories, and we've come to understand that these conspiracy theories are often true. I've seen them myself. I'm not going to go into each individual one because these then will be debunked by somebody on the internet. This is always what's going on. We have people who are against the truth, and they will always come and try to debunk things that people say, even when we know that they are the truth. You have to stay steadfast with your beliefs if that is truthful. If you're wrong, then you can't be as steadfast. You might have to be a little bit more adaptable because it's something that you are being led to believe. Belief is not the truth. Believing something does not mean it is the truth. It just means you believe it. That is something that can be embedded into you. This can be also innate in people, that they are liars. People are compulsive liars. Some people will always tell lies, particularly when it is their own wrongdoing. I find with people who are racist tend to deny being racist even after their actions show that they are racist. And people may say, well, why do you always go back to racism? I'm saying it's obvious, mate. It's obvious, ladies. It's obvious why I would talk about that. There is still an unbalance in society. I am black. Regardless whether you want to look at my education or me being born in England, I still have to deal with that and face that fact. It's not something that's ever going to change. So facts within that realm are truthful. It's truthful that I am a dark complexion. I am not black. So that is not a truthful statement. I'm more brown than I am black. That is more a truthful statement. People used to call each other coloured. Some people found that offensive. So we found that the system then offered us an alternative, black, which didn't donate to being a nation. So, if you class yourself as being black, it kind of puts you into a little bit of a black hole, a deep dive, a rabbit hole, leaving yourself in a hole, just being classed as black because you're not of a nation. These are something that people can think about as well. People don't class themselves as I'm white because they don't. They just say that they're English or they're American or they're French or they're Dutch or they're German or they're Australian. This is what some people need to realize, that a lot of the things that are given to us are not truthful statements. Some of the statements that we then regurgitate are not truthful statements. They're just statements that have been given to us. People call themselves kings and queens, but don't act like kings and queens. So it's not a fact that you are a queen. It's not a fact that you are a king. Some people will get very upset now because they believe that they can be self-titled something. They're self-titled as a champion. People identify now as being something. So where is the truth? Where are we in society? And it definitely points to the fact that people are making up the truth. People are reinventing history. That is not truthful. That is not honesty. That is not transparency. So in order to find the truth, we have to have these components. We have to have transparency. We cannot have no bias in it. We have to deal with all of the facts. We cannot leave out any of the facts. We have to be honest in ourselves, that even though we're saying something that goes against us, it might even get us into trouble, we're still willing to stand and give the truth. Stand on the stand and give the truth. This often happens, and I admire anybody who does this, who in spite of all the recriminations will go out and talk the truth. This is a truthful. Saving somebody's life, this is being truthful. It is an honest reaction to seeing something dangerous happening to somebody, and deep down you would risk your own life like a fireman would to save that person. You save your children. You would go all out to save your children. This is the truth. For a family member, you would risk your own life for that family member. This is the truth. But if we had a reverse situation and we found that that person wouldn't do the same for us, we may then alter our position. Then that statement still remains truthful, but it becomes hypothetical. Hypothetical is to do with theory. It's not actual. It's not actual fact. It's just a scenario that we broach the scenario or the hypotheses of some scenario. So we can be theoretically honest. And we can be theoretically dishonest if we look at theory. But if we look at things on actually what we did, or actually things of what we would do, because these are honest feelings, these are honest things, we can't look at it in a theoretical fact or in any hypotheses, because it's something that we can evidence that we've done before. The house was on fire. I run in, saved everybody, saved the day, but that person may have died saving the people. But he was honest. He went in there, lost his life. This is honesty. This is being an honest person. People who are walking their dogs and the dog sees a frozen lake, the birds on it, the dog being the dog, being honest, who goes after the birds. The birds being honest, don't want to get eaten. They can obviously balance on that thin ice. The dog runs onto it, the dog can't. The dog goes in, the dog owner sees the dog going into the frozen lake. The dog owner, being honest, wanting to save the dog's life, goes in trying to save the dog, gets the dog out, loses his own life. This happens a lot of times. This is honesty. I'm being honest about these things. Does not mean that that person is a bad person, because that is something that they elected to do. They never asked for permission. They saw the dog go in, they jumped in. And we have to recommend that these people be honoured, commended for what they've done. So this is truthful. This is us being truthful. This is us being honest about what we really see and what we really believe. If our children were in danger, we would go out of our way to help our children, to support our children, to be there for our children. We can always be there. So this does not mean that we're being dishonest. It's just, this is the fact of life. You cannot live somebody's life for them. You cannot be there 24 hours a day. On that, then you would become their carer. If you was with them 24 hours a day, then you are in charge of them. And if anything happened, you should feel responsible for that person or for that situation. If you don't feel responsibility, there's some form of neglect there. There's some form of disconnect even, where you're not taking responsibility for what you are supposed to be looking after. You are in charge of that person. Parents have to do this all the time. Some parents, for one slight second, turn away. Something happens. Does this mean that this person is responsible? No, but that person still has to live with that guilt. This is honest feelings. These are honest reactions. If somebody doesn't feel guilty, even though they know that they were responsible, and yes, accidents happen, then this is also their own honest opinion. You know, the rest of the public may not agree with what they do. They may even lose friends and family, especially if it's a young person. That young person is badly hurt or even worse. So these are things that we talk about in life. So I'm talking about life, and I'm talking about lifestyle, and I'm talking about the musicians, because the musicians have this responsibility to get the message out. And I'm going to be playing some of the artists and some of their songs throughout the series. I've heard of an artist named Ren. Seems to be very open and honest about his own opinions on the music industry, and some people may see this as a problem, and I would just recommend that you carry on, continue doing what you're doing, and hopefully you have enough support around you to be able to navigate through the music industry, because what this artist seems to be doing is very refreshing. It's not the originality of it. It's not about him doing something different. It's just being an individual. He's actually being an individual within an industry that clones out, just has a machine that just, just picks up and drops off these clones of itself. We don't always notice it, but this is how the industry works, both in the film industry and the music industry. So when we find artists who are doing something different, it's quite refreshing. And I'll also have Magic Matam, an artist from Africa, who has sent me a lot of material. I listen to his stuff, and it seems to be on the same wavelength as what the Ricochet, Symbiotic, UKJ's, Diamond Beats team are on. we listen to various different types of music. And Magic Matam, we're going to be playing some of your song after this video, and hopefully you've enjoyed this slightly long, different discussion that talks about the truth, talks about the industry, talks a little bit about the P. Diddy situation, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more as that develops, because there's a lot of things happening there. We've had the Jaguar Wright interview that was done by Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan, being from the British establishment, often surrounded by controversy himself. So he has a program now that is called Uncensored, and this is quite important for you to know what the name of the program is. It's called Uncensored, and he had Jaguar Wright on. Jaguar Wright is somebody who's plugged into the music industry. I've seen her come on and talk about various different issues within the hip-hop world. I first heard about her when Takeoff was murdered. This happened in Houston, surrounded by his own friends, his entourage of different people. Jay Prince's name was mentioned, Jay Prince Jr., Junior Prince. These were names that were mentioned. Drake. These names that were mentioned. And she then came out, made statements to do with this. She made statements about SA allegations, grape allegations. That's not the word, but that's, you understand what I mean. These allegations she made against a number of people, R. Kelly being one, P. Diddy being another one, and some other people. And on the Piers Morgan show, she came and reiterated what her feelings are to do with the whole P. Diddy situation. But what Jaguar Wright then did, she then went into a complete repertoire of some of the other allegations she wanted to then broach forward. Piers Morgan, being who he was, soaked this up. This is, this is gold dust for him. He sat back and let her say name after name. Beyonce was mentioned, Jay-Z was mentioned, in a very derogatory way, I must say. And if somebody's got that information, why would they go on to television to talk about it? I think the best place for you to do that is in court. You would have all the evidence. Even if you don't have the evidence, you still have your day in court. On the television, it's not a court system, even though we do have programs now that shows it as that. It's not the place for justice. It's a place where you can have your 15 minutes of fame or your 5 minutes of fame, depending on how long it lasts for, and say your piece. And hopefully you have advisors around you who coach you on what's legal to say, what's not legal to say, what is right to say, what you should say. Should go on prior to the interview. We saw this with Boris Johnson, where he was having an interview with the BBC, and inadvertently the reporter emailed him all the questions. This led to the interview being cancelled. But in the Jaguar Wright case, the interview hadn't been cancelled, and as I said, it went on, and Jaguar Wright made certain defamatory statements. Defamatory is against the law. It is illegal to make statements that are untruth, or to be untruth, or just your opinion, so you're accusing somebody of doing something, usually something illegal, for it to become sensational. This is what she did, and I'm not going to repeat the accusations, because to this day the interview has been taken down. That is what the outcome of that was, because Piers Morgan had to then come back days later and issue a statement, a public statement, from Jay-Z and Beyonce's solicitors. The statement obviously gave out ultimatums to the network, to Piers Morgan, to cease and desist. This is what happens. This is something that needs to happen. Whether you are a powerful artist or not, or you are a powerful individual, you have a right to your day in court. If you have been doing things and there is no evidence of it, then realistically people will come out, especially nowadays of social media, and will make accusations. you can issue your own statement of cease and desist. This usually works. If you do it publicly and you state out, then that person should cease and desist. We also have a court system. So yeah, this is what's happening now with the P Diddy situation. P Diddy is still facing very serious charges. We've even seen other videos that are painting a very, very dark picture of P Diddy at the moment. I do watch some of it. I won't comment on it, but I do watch it. So yeah, hopefully we can get some clarity on that story.
Restez chez vous avec votre modernisation et laissez l'Afrique à l'état naturel. Omebote di balonge Afrika itaye dolo. Omebote balonge Afrika itaye dolo. Batibino como na mo banyam c'est bon. Batibino como na mo banyam c'est bon. L'Afrique aux Africains. L'Afrique est devenue une histoire de manger, c'est chacun qui vient puiser et il s'en va.
Ça ne va pas.
En Côte d'Ivoire, au Mali,
Ça ne va pas.
la Côte d'Ivoire béto. L'Afrique sans Africain, c'est votre devoir, votre challenge.
Ça ne va pas.
Au Sénégal, à Cabrief, au Bénin,
Ça ne va pas.
et au Togo. Laissez l'Afrique aux Africains, à l'état brut. Au Nigeria,
Ça ne va pas.
et au Congo, en Guinée,
Ça ne va
même
pas.
chez Sékou Touré. Moro de Dubaï, Yahweh de Berry, Michel King, Gustave Guy, Nonon Kouta, Christian Malo, Nyoya Sega. Yes on dédi, yes on dédi, yes on dédi. Yes on dédi, yes on dédi, yes on dédi. Moulé mamweba na bongo, Moudouté na bongo. Moulé mamweba na doutoué, Moudouté na douméya. Ouais, Ibola de Baba Doudi. Mémé c'est non, nous sommes ça. Alléluia. Les voleurs d'or. Au Ghana,
Ça ne va pas.
au Libéria, en Éthiopie
Ça ne va pas.
et au Rwanda. Les voleurs du diamant et du pétrole en Afrique. Les voleurs du bois, du mercure. Au Zimbabwe,
Ça ne va pas.
en Tanzanie, en Guinée
Ça ne va pas.
et au Centrafrique. L'Afrique sans Africains, c'est votre devoir, votre mission, votre challenge. Les maladies, c'est vous. La prostitution, c'est vous. La pédophilie, c'est vous. Corona, c'est vous. Rendez aux Africains ce que vous leur avez
Ça
volé.
ne va pas.
Au début, l'Afrique était unie et solidaire.
Ça ne
Il
va
n'y
pas.
avait pas de guerre, il n'y avait pas de tuerie partout.
Ça ne va pas.
Aujourd'hui, c'est partout en Afrique. La déstabilisation
Ça ne
africaine.
va pas.
C'est ça que vous voulez. Et vous nous parlez de modernisation. Alors restez chez vous. Sinon, on va vous chicoter. Gaddafi, ton peuple a besoin de toi. Christian est bien chicote. On va
Ça
vous
ne va pas.
chicoter. Parrain, on va
Ça ne
vous
va pas.
chicoter. On va
Ça
vous
ne va pas.
chicoter. On va
Ça ne
vous
va pas.